All of these are actually questions that, they asked me in my interview. So you guys are getting real gems right now, even if these are just practice questions. So I'm dropping all the gems. Hey y'all, it's Shanika here. If you're new, my name is Shanika, and if you are a returning subscriber, thank you and welcome back. Here I'm back with part 2 on how to get your first nursing job as a new grad. Specifically, for those who want to work in the NICU, so the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. So, if you're interested in learning how I got my first job, please keep watching. I'm a new grad and I graduated last year and wrote my NCLEX this year in January. I started applying for jobs as soon as I passed my NCLEX. So for me, I did my consolidating placement. So that's the last placement that you do before graduation. I did that placement. It had 300 hours. I did a split. So I had the chance to work in the pediatric unit, and I also worked in the NICU unit at a local hospital. And I really gravitated towards working with the babies. So this is a personal story, but I was actually born premature, and I always grew up with my parents telling me, when you're a young baby, you were born premature. So, and you were really sick, and then you were sent to the hospital downtown in Toronto. I was sent to sick kids where they had to take care of me, and I was there for a few months before I was able to come home. So when I had the opportunity to work in the NICU, it really resonated with me, and I just felt like a connection to caring for the babies and caring for the families. So, with that being said, I kind of, during my, consolidating placement, I kind of thought about, I could see myself potentially working here. But what's funny is a lot of nurses, especially older nurses, will tell you, you should go to med-surg first. You should gain experience elsewhere first before coming to the NICU, because it is a very specialized area. And these are the most fragile babies, right? These are the most fragile babies, most fragile beings that you're caring for in healthcare. So a lot of, not a lot, but I do recall, I just remember kind of feeling a little, not, I guess a little discouraged when that was mentioned. Not a lot of people mentioned it, but it was never said directly, but it was kind of said indirectly, if that makes sense, insinuating that should be your course of action once you graduate. So I just landed my first job in the NICU, and I have to tell you that don't listen to those people. If you really want to work in a specialty, you should genuinely try your very best to get into it right after graduation. Get your foot in the door. Don't let other people discourage you. So, with that being said, let me go back. So after I graduated, when I was searching for jobs, keeping that in mind, I did apply to jobs that were kind of more in med-surg. I applied for mental health too. I was just applying to jobs. I was just applying to apply, to be completely honest with you. I was just applying to whoever had a posting, because at this point, I'm just what, I need to get experience anyways. And I did have in my mind that, other nurses were saying that, it's good to get experience in other areas of nursing before coming to the NICU. So I was basically open-minded. In addition to that, I also applied to the NICU, to a few NICU jobs, because I remembered how I felt doing my consolidating placement. I knew that I did like it, and I shouldn't listen. I don't know, part of me just I just remember having a conversation with a friend, and he mentioning that, look, if you want to go for something, go for it. Don't let other people discourage you. And he really just it was like a light bulb that went off, and was just more reassurance that, even if it's just an application, like submitting your application, even if they don't call you back, let me at least try. So I had submitted my resumes and everything to those various different areas, and I ended up having an interview. I had 4 interviews in total. So the first 2, one was in mental health, and the second one was like more of a med surge. Diagnoses that you see in the NICU versus like on like a med surge floor are completely different. They're 2 completely different like populations in itself. So I just didn't have that same experience. So when I was interviewing, those interviews that I had did not go so well, to be honest with you. But then, and just when I thought like it was over and I was feeling bummed out and I was feeling sad that, you know, they didn't really, like, I didn't really feel confident coming out of those interviews, like, I got a call and another hospital wanted to interview me for their NICU position. And I was like, wow, this is perfect timing. So I ended up doing the interview. It went really well. And I actually have my notes that I'm going to share with you guys on. But then I also had after that I had a second interview, and the second interview, that's the one that I actually accepted the offer from, and that was another NICU position from another hospital. I just remember feeling so confident going into it. So let's get into the questions. Actually questions that, you know, they asked me in my interview, so you guys are getting real gems right now. Even if these are just practice questions for you, like, these are real gems. So I'm dropping all the gems. So tell me about what you know about the unit, or tell me about what you know about the hospital. It's so important to do your research and look up the hospital, look up the unit, look to see if there's any specific values that they have. Let's say let's say like their mission statement is like, I don't know, respect, dignity, family-centered care, something along those lines. You really want to take note of that, and when you answer this question, it's so helpful to like recall that and put that into your answer. Also, it's important to know that there's different levels in the neonatal intensive care unit. Hospitals that I was applying for, they were all level 3 hospitals. So I made sure to mention that, you know, I'm applying to a level 3 hospital because I want the opportunity to work with babies who are the sickest of sick, where I'll have the opportunity to work with babies with various different diagnoses and really get to learn and hone in on my skills in critical thinking. So I really highlighted that. So level 3 is, I think in my city, is like considered to be like the highest level of acuity, meaning that like these babies, they're born like, I believe, less than 28 weeks, and they have an extremely low birth weight. So with these babies, they have more complications, and so they would need a level 3 care versus a level 2. What makes you interested in working in the NICU? So make sure you have a solid answer for that, you know, like make sure that you show them that you are truly passionate about working with this population. And like, this is not like a daycare. This is not like, you know, like a cute little nursery where you're taking care. Like, these babies are really critically sick. So you want to really reflect on that and ask yourself, why do you want to work with this population, you know, and tell a story. Like, I feel like stories translate so well. Like, if you had an opportunity where you worked with babies, mention that. And if you have an opportunity where you work with families and you really love providing care specifically for families, because in the NICU you care for a lot of moms and babies and dads and families, you can mention that. For me, I mentioned the fact that I was premature. I was born premature, and I've always just knew that about me, and I really just gravitated towards caring for children. I love working with children. And, you know, when I had my experience in the NICU, I just feel like something resonated with me when it came to providing care for that population. Why is it important to have good communication skills as a NICU nurse? So for this question, just try for this question. Like, it's really important. I feel like in all areas of nursing, you really have to have great communication skills. Like, that is key. So I think that, like, as a nurse, you should. So really try to think of an answer to that question. For me, I believe, like, I said something along the lines of, like, you know, you're caring for, like, the most critically ill babies, and a lot of times parents, they don't expect to end up in an ICU. They are kind of just, after they give birth, the baby's born, and there's a complication, or they might need some extra time in the NICU, then they're told that they have to be there. So it's really important to keep the family involved into the care, have an open communication, make sure that they know that their baby is safe when they leave, if they have to leave the unit. A question to the best of your ability, but that's why it's really important that you build that therapeutic relationship with the parents, because you know, a lot of them are anxious, they're scared, and it's really important for them to know that their baby is safe and that the baby is in the best care possible. Just try to be as genuine and honest in your answers, because you have to be, right? Like, you can't keep up a charade if you got the job. Like, you have to just, this has to just be you. It has to come from the heart. I had made a list of what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and I advise anyone to do that if they're going for a job interview. Think about what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses related to the job. What are qualities of a good NICU nurse, right? So I mentioned, like, 3 of my strengths, and then, for example, let's give an example. Skills, right? A good NICU nurse needs to have good communication. She needs to communicate effectively with her family. I developed great communication skills as I was able to work on the unit, teaching families, teaching parents how to do diaper changes, how to bottle feed for the very first time. That required extremely good communication skills. Developed great time management skills and organization skills, because I had to feed, sometimes I had 2 or 3 babies that were Q3 feeds, and in order to get that done in a timely manner, I had to be organized. I had to prepare all my supplies, gather all my supplies beforehand. Situational based questions are questions where they're asking you, tell me about a time when, you give like a situation, right? These questions, I hate these questions, but you have to be prepared for them. So you may be asked, like, tell me about a time when you had a med error. What did you do to correct it or resolve it? Right? Or tell me about a time when you had to correct someone for a mistake that they did and how you went about it. So these 2 questions are I feel like very common type of questions. They might kind of say the same, rephrase the question in different ways, but kind of ask the same thing. So I would have like 3 or 4 examples of you either working with a coworker or in school, in nursing school, maybe even working with a patient in your clinical practice. Like, make a list of examples that you can draw on and use to answer these questions, right? So it doesn't all, like, as a new grad, we don't have that much experience, so these questions can kind of be hard because we don't have that vast years of experience to draw on. Oh, I had this experience with this patient, I had this, but we do have the few experiences that we had in clinical, and we do have what we had in lab. So don't be afraid to use experiences that you've also had in lab or clinical. So that's what I did. And yeah, just make a list and try to be able to answer these questions, and you make sure that you're coming across as, look, I made this mistake, but I learned from it. Like, you need to turn the negative into a positive and show them how you've learned. Well, I think for this question, I said I made a mistake in my lab. I told them directly I couldn't think of an example in clinical where I made a mistake, but I could think of one where I made a mistake in lab, and I made a mistake. Before I wrap up this video, I also think it's really important for you to research your specialty and identify common diagnoses that occur or complications that can occur in this population. In the NICU, you have babies who are feeder growers, babies who have jaundice, babies that are on CPAP, babies who have fetal alcohol syndrome, so which is necrotizing enterocolitis. That's a complication you want to also be aware of. Abnormal breathing, so if they're born premature, you have apnea of prematurity, and I want you to be aware of them. Just take some time, research them, make notes on them, because you might get a question where they give you a scenario-based question and ask how you would go about doing or handling or caring for a baby who has any one of these complications. Even though you will be taught and trained on site, like, it's still good to research some of these, so you know, and because I definitely had questions like that. That would be the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if this was helpful. I tried to make this as organized as I could, but I kind of threw this video in last minute, and I think it can help you guys as well. So give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you guys next time.